and that sounds amazing. But then there's, and what I love is microdosing the psilocybin and creating, a music playlist and lighting the candles, setting a vibe, even pairing it with cannabis, and then getting into, partner exercises, root chakra activation with your lover, journaling together. And I believe the fusion of the psychedelic medicine, the cannabis medicine, with the intention of sex magic is a really powerful thing, because then you're able to take yourself to a level of deep manifestation and bring into fruition your deepest desires. So it's powerful medicine, and with that, having it for special moments, times when you're ready to tap into that next level of your partnership, of your intimacy with yourself, I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, this room really filled out. I guess this is a popular topic. So the term psychedelics, there's a lot of debate about what that means, what substances that encapsulates. Is ecstasy a psychedelic? You could argue that it's not. It might be just semantics, but let's get into all the different substances that we put underneath that umbrella, and maybe how these substances can play their own unique role, either in a therapeutic context or in the actual act of sex. Looking at DMT, ecstasy, you brought up cannabis. What sort of substances play different roles in this?
I would definitely incorporate MDMA in there because it activates your 5-HT2A receptors, which is going to give that same effect. So just on that, I would add it to that category. And some people add cannabis to the psychedelic category as well.
Oh goodness, I really hope no one's recording this, because I have to admit that I have tried a few of these things, and I would definitely say that, Molly and ecstasy are some of the best experiences where you're actually opening yourself up to experiencing pleasure in a whole new way, like being able to have a climax from like nipple stimulation. Am I allowed to say, I mean, this is sex. Like certain things that I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know my body was capable of this kind of thing. I could definitely see how if you started doing that a lot, like maybe it would detract from just having intimate time not on a substance. So I think that being careful in those regards, but being able to experience pleasure in a whole new level, just with a brush of an arm or something like that, or rain, for example, just the raindrops on you can feel amazing. I woke up to my humidifier, like the mist falling on my face. This was on mushrooms. And I was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. Stuff you would never experience, it's just, it's some good stuff. But I feel like psilocybin is more of a deeper connected spiritual kind of feeling versus the other ones that I've never done or anything. I feel that more physical, if that makes sense. I mean, from my personal experience that I haven't had, so.
Okay, I've tried a few of them. I'd have to say I really did enjoy like a macro dose of MDMA, but lately I would have to say silomethoxin, which is a pretty new novel compound. And if you want to know anything about it, they have a booth set up, and I'll be moderating that panel on Saturday. But it's really an energetic medicine, this very sacred synthesis, and it reminds me a lot of MDMA, without some of like the jaw, some of the brain hangover.
All the water.
Yes, yeah, no like intense dehydration and stuff, and that's been a really beautiful medicine, especially with cannabis. Herb is always involved, no matter what psychedelic.
What is that from?
Silomethoxin?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll let them get into it, but they basically feed the 5-MeO salt to the mycelia, and then when the body fruits, it converts to not psilocybin, not 5-MeO, but an orally available form.
Sign me up.
Yes, yeah, and we can sign you up. Yes.
All right.
Well, let's talk about psychotherapy a little bit again. I've been in situations with taking DMT, for instance, where the person administering it to this group really wanted to take a kind of hands-off approach to any sort of guidance or facilitation of the administration of this drug. And one person did have a history with sexual assault, and it came out in that moment. And the guide, he was resistant to that term. He said the medicine is the guide. He is not the guide. Well, that's all well and good, but I imagine in that state, when you're grappling with that, you're in an incredibly vulnerable and possibly re-traumatizing mind state. So what does someone, putting the actual act of sex aside for a moment, what does someone need to know, and do we have a lot of knowledge about the approach to taking care of someone with a history of sexual assault when they're under the influence of these, very powerful substances?
Again, that's why I would advocate for somebody who is already a licensed therapist right there. So somebody who's a licensed therapist or a psychologist, ideally, who is trained, because most psychologists are trained in sexual assault and some of the more common issues. The other reason is I think most therapists and psychologists who are trained in this don't see themselves. So I did like the fact that they said he wasn't he was guiding as opposed to sometimes people have looked at themselves as almost like a god and I'm here to treat you. And sometimes that ego can cause people that are especially under the influence to be a little too following, and that's where things can be an issue. So I do like the fact that they were saying the medicine is the guide, but I still think that, again, that should come from somebody who has the education behind it and has the licensure behind it.
Mm-hmm. All right.
See, we all agree. I'm just kidding.
Well, let's talk about gender a little bit. Looking at men and women and people who identify as trans or non-binary, what are some of the transformative effects that psychedelics can have on a person? Speaking as the only man on this panel, I imagine there would be an opportunity for increased empathy, increased connection to another person, setting aside your own selfish desires in a sexual context and really paying attention to another person. But what is it that a psychedelic experience could give to women or people from, free to weigh in on any gender in terms of enhancing their sexual perspective?
I would think it would help in terms of overall vulnerability, since especially MDMA allows you to be more vulnerable. I think that if you were told that either a homosexual act is wrong or, ladies don't do that, I think in that sense that would allow you to be more vulnerable, and it definitely helps with pair bonding and openness. So if society or family or whatever has told you that you can't engage in these types of behaviors, I think that then it would help there.
I think that it definitely helps you see things for what they really are. I know that if I'm using a psychedelic, I will see things, like how they are, not how you've perceived them to be. Like things that are actually small things, but they feel like really big things. When you use the medicine, it kind of helps you differentiate between that. And it's like full acceptance as well. Like before, with anxiety, I would spill my coffee on myself and it would ruin my entire day. Versus now that I microdose psilocybin regularly, I spill my coffee, oh, that sucks, I change my shirt, Or I also see people as more beautiful. Like I can see something beautiful in every single person when I am using the medicine. I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. People's hair looks more shiny, or I appreciate someone's jawline, or whatever it is. But I think it helps you see the beauty in every single thing and just being more accepting. And that means being more accepting of yourself. Like, okay, I haven't been allowed to feel this way because it's against my religion or against my family. And you're like, you know what? It is okay that I feel this way,
So the science of psychedelics is, made a lot of progress, but for many decades it was based on anecdotal research, and a lot of the reason for that are the laws surrounding psychedelics. It's difficult to do anything above board in terms of research because we have all these restrictions on these substances and who's allowed to research them and how to navigate that. With sex and psychedelics, I imagine that's all the more restrictive because there's not a whole lot of opportunities to observe or study someone in the act of sex in a clinical setting. So I personally don't know specifically what the laws are regarding this if you were to attempt to do any research on the subject. If anyone wants to weigh in on where that currently stands, and is there much research on this topic?
Yeah, anecdotal research for the most part. Yeah, it's illegal as of now. It's definitely illegal in the United States, which is obviously a barrier. I know with us, it would be ideal if you could have a macrodose of MDMA and you and your partner could have some privacy. I don't know, like some people, especially those with sexual issues, might have a problem having sex in front of a therapist. Some people might like it. I don't know. I guess it depends on your thing, but I can imagine with sexual issues that might even be worse right there. So ideally, it would be great to allow a macrodosing session. You can go off, you can discuss this with a therapist beforehand, and it's not just like, come in one day, here's your drug, go to a room. I mean, they would have psychotherapy sessions without any MDMA beforehand, MDMA, and then after. But yeah, that would be ideal. But if the law doesn't allow it, where we would look at it would then potentially be a microdose, like a take-home microdose, but again, FDA. But Canada is making great progress. The EU, there's a greater hope there. United States is probably not going to be first one to get there.
So I know this is a panel about psychedelics, but if we could talk about cannabis for just a moment. It's Cannadelic, so it's obviously relevant, and I think you could make an argument that it is a type of psychedelic. What sort of products are we seeing? Well, we have someone who's creating products for this industry, but what sort of products are we seeing for sexual enhancement or enjoyment, and what types of maybe cannabinoids and terpenes may have an impact on this? And real quick, something that I noticed a couple of years ago was the market was flooded with THC lubricants. You could go and buy them at a dispensary, and I'm not sure exactly what happened. Maybe it wasn't terribly lucrative, but at some point, most or all of those disappeared. At least in Denver, there are no THC lubricants. It all went CBD, and I imagine there's more opportunities to sell that. But if you all want to weigh in on the application of cannabis and sexuality.
You and I are both like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So my first product that I created is, well, we can't call it a lubricant because lubricants are considered a Class 2 medical device by the FDA. So that adds another layer of tape to try to get through. But the reason why I created it was because when I went to a doctor for the pain that I was having during sex, they prescribed me numbing gel. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. Let me be numb for sex. That sounds like so much fun for everyone. So I had really severe pain for 2.5, almost 3 years. And obviously that did some damage to my marriage because every time we had sex, I would cry. So I had gotten assaulted just like a few weeks before meeting my now ex-husband, but they just didn't really give me solutions. And it was numbing gel and then pelvic physical therapy were the only solutions. So after I got divorced, I didn't have sex for like 8 months. The next time I had sex, I was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't hurt anymore. So my body just physically needed to heal. So after my body healed, I had tremendous sexual anxiety. So then I still wasn't able to climax because I'm like, oh my gosh, this should hurt. Is it going to start hurting? And then also the traumas and all of that. But after lots of therapy and all sorts of things, I was better. But I wanted to create a product that would help women that maybe they can't heal themselves. Maybe it's a condition that they have, which we obviously can't treat a condition. But there's nothing out there to help people. Numbing stuff is not helping your sexual intimacy. So CBD is anti-inflammatory. And 75% of women have pain during sex at some point of their lives. 40% of women have some form of sexual dysfunction all the time, which could be like inability to climax, lack of desire, pain. And then the pain during sex is from inflammation. And inflammation can come from trauma, can come from, endometriosis, childbirth, all different kinds of things. But it still is inflammation generally causing the pain. So once you target that with the CBD, that can help you actually not have pain or not have as much pain without numbing you, and then you can enjoy pleasure. So I felt like the THC component was not important to me because my desire was to help people be able to enjoy sex, reduce the discomfort for them, and sure enough, it actually works. And it's changed a lot of lives. And I'm sure you have the same kind of feedback. We just met right before this. She does the same kind of thing. It's amazing how just taking away that discomfort for people can literally change their life, save their marriage. And the CBD or the THC can also boost pleasurable sensations as well. So these products really are not just like a gimmick. They actually work, and you don't have to need lubrication to use one of these kind of things to enhance your sex life. But I'll let you go because I talked too much.
Well said. Good work, sister.
And I have samples.
Yes. Yeah, so to piggyback off of that, I too started making initially vaginal suppositories. I remember trying some of like Foria, and it smelled like chocolate, and I'm like, I can't imagine that like everyone, I can't be the only one that like doesn't like love that smell. So started like formulating, same reason, to help women with a bunch of pelvic discomfort. I think to kind of comment on what you said about like there was a bunch of THC only ones and then they sort of like disappeared. My opinion on that is I don't see a lot of value in THC only because there's very few people who do not have something inflammatory, whatever part of your cycle, your infradian, your circadian rhythm you're in, there's usually something going on. So if you're only purely sensitizing a pre-existing inflammatory issue, and on top of that, there's like not a whole lot of research on like the vaginal microbiome and how those like water-based products and the SLS and there's all these like compounds, how they affect that. And I think that there's a renaissance of people knowing I want to know what's going in my body. So I think there's been sort of a shift to more CBD based, like as she was just talking about. I think just helping women reduce their pain, their inflammation and stuff, and just surrender and enjoy the experience. I think there's been wonderful feedback. Obviously, a lot of it's like anecdotal, but it's been a beautiful thing.
Do you guys advocate for the combo of them, like CBD and
I
THC?
think there's a lot of value in doing a one-to-one. I have done that before because then you're kind of hitting both. It's a little bit of a harder step and an extra extraction, but I really enjoy that, yeah. I think there's a lot of value. And for terpenes, I really try and gravitate to extracting things that are very abundant in like myrcene or beta-caryophyllene, like terpenes that have their own therapeutic effect, even isolated from the endocannabinoid itself. So
I think that they're just not selling them in dispensaries as much because people are just going online. You can buy CBD anywhere, and I feel like probably most people don't want to go in and ask a bud tender, hey, you got some lube, So most of my products are sold in sex shops like all over the place.
Yeah,
so that's
same.
more.
Yeah, I haven't gone to a dispensary. It's like pelvic floor therapists
Yeah,
and sex shops and things like that.
I just think it's a demand thing more so, people just order it on my website or a sex shop where you're looking for lube.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it. Y'all are in your zone right now. So when it comes to everything, all of this is great. The vaginal suppositories, they're not just the ones that I remember from the market, they had vaginal, which were also anal. So it was more inclusive for everyone. Amazing if you ever get to experience the suppositories, the lube, CBD infused THC. And what I think is also cool to note is the vibration of foreplay and remembering to have fun with it. And it may not always be about the act of sex and, thinking about the journey leading up to it, right? And the intention in that. And maybe certain times you might not always have a lot of time for foreplay, but I think that part is very important to remember. And so there's so many there's a company called Sip Good Tea. It's a black-owned tea company based out of LA, and they make these really beautiful THC and CBD infused herbal teas, 20 milligrams each. And they're infused with other aphrodisiac herbs like rose, Damiana, exactly. And so you make your tea, you brew the vibe. It's something about the way sipping the medicine hits your system differently. You might roll up some kush. It might be a whole experience. And also I wanted to note the bath bombs, CBD, THC bath bombs, taking a sacred bath, having that experience with the fresh rose petals and the herbs and the aromatherapy popping, and you have a vibe. You've created this sanctuary for yourself where you're in a more relaxed state. You're more uninhibited, and you can then, connect even deeper. So just remembering those things, that there's so many different products that can correlate to, just different stages in the process of foreplay and sex and leading up to it. And so remember your foreplay, remember just to keep it sexy, keep it sensual.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll just add to that, for men or trans women or anyone who has a prostate, the cannabis lubes have been midwifing this new revolution in anal stimulation, which is quite taboo for straight men and even a lot of gay men. I think only like 30-40% or something of gay men engage in anal sex, and that could be for a variety of reasons. And it's fine if you don't enjoy it, but even straight men, you're missing out. It's quite a doorbell we got down there. And the CBD lubes, after they, give them a little time to take effect, they really can relax that whole area and allow it to be a much more pleasurable and less intimidating experience. So we still got a little bit of time. Do we have anyone in the audience with any questions for our panel? Yes.
So where does sex education come into the whole equation that we're doing even a lot of education on the psychedelic? Some people may not be well versed in anatomy, and particularly male versus female anatomy. So where does the sex education come into the conversation?
Oh, I'll take this one. So, United States sex education is really dreadful. So, there are only 37 states require sex education, and of those 37, only 13 states require sex education to be medically accurate. And that's pretty bad.
It's important.
Yeah, true story. So when I was working on my dissertation, and hopefully this has changed now, not to rip on anybody from Tennessee, but Tennessee was not one of the medically accurate states, and they actually taught that there was no real need for a condom to prevent HIV transmission because the virus is smaller than the pores of the condom. Now, we all know a virus is actually very tiny, and while that might specifically be true, the fluid it travels in is contained in the condom. So things of that nature are so dreadful that even before we got to like a sex positive education model, which I fully advocate, and I could go on for an hour on, but a sex positive model, which is, so right now, the majority of our states are saying abstinence only. Don't have sex. If you have sex, bad, you're gonna die, right? And then now even the more open-minded states are having a comprehensive sexuality education program, which says if you have sex, use a condom, use birth control, and these are ways to prevent these diseases. But there is no one that's really advocating a sex-positive model, which is saying there are benefits of sex, right? The majority of times we're not even allowing condoms in there because people believe that it's advocating for precocious sexual activity. And the reality is, if somebody says they want to remain a virgin for X number of years and you give them a condom, they're not going to go, ooh, let me go find somebody. Like, that's not what happens, right? So I do think it's incredibly important to educate people. I think the college route might be the best bet. I have taught college sexuality education programs, and you're a little bit more free at that point, especially once you're tenured. You can talk a little bit more about it. But where it's really important, going up through 12, I think we're so far from that. I'd just be happy if we said, you know, you're not going to hell if you have sex. That'd be great.
Yeah, no one's staying a virgin for a lack of condoms.
Exactly. Same thing. It's the same theory because I'm in public health with like needle exchange programs. People are so against it. Like I've had access to a bunch of needles. I've never been like, where's my heroin now? Like it doesn't happen that way, right? Like follow the science here.
I'm just going to take an opportunity to shout out a couple of amazing women in the sexuality space that you should look into, and they share very beautiful information and education through workshops and different things like that. But Ashley Manta of Cannadelic, that's a powerful woman right there. Ashley Asatu, who is in the Bay Area with Yoni Adore Spa. And the other one is Crystal Tantric Yoga. She is a sex education, tantric, just muse. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to put those ladies on your radar.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Yes.
Thank you. So with all of you very skilled and smart people up on stage, if there's one thing that you could instill in the minds of a couple that they could walk away from here and really learn how to make their own sexual relationship better, whether it be through use of psychedelics in it or even just in the absence of those, what would you tell them?
Yes. Okay. Stop faking it, okay? Like, seriously, why? Stop pretending like you like something that's not doing anything for you. Like, you want to get it over with? No, how about you start actually doing something that you enjoy? And especially in new relationships, like, you act like you like something, but you really hate it, you know, the tap thing, and then why are you doing that before you put it in or whatever? But starting out with being real about what you like. And I literally had a guy break things off with me, this was just a few months ago, because he's like, you were too intimidating. He's like, I thought that maybe you work up to that kind of thing. And I said, you do realize that I actually do talks on empowering women in their sexuality. I'm sorry, Vanilla Allen, that I scared you by asking for a little light choking. And he was like traumatized. Anyway, I mean, that's like kink light, right? Like diet kink, you know, what's you want? Missionary on a Tuesday night with the lights off? Like, come on. Anyway, but just setting the standard from the beginning and being vocal, communicating, and above all, you don't have to have a climax every time you have sex. So stop faking it, okay? Be in the moment and communicate and be real. That's all.
And when you get home, you're amazing. And when you get home, you know, work on a love project together. Wherever you spend the most time, in the bedroom, the living room, the bathroom, curate the space. Get you some sexy red silk sheets, bring some plants into the bedroom, a cheetah print faux fur rug, microdose together, CBD, cacao with the mushroom tea, unbelievable, next level, heart opener, sit with each other, meditate with each other, create playlists for each other, be intentional in that space, and don't be afraid to do the shadow work together, see each other, eye gaze, look at each other, eye to eye, face to face, for 30 minutes minimum. Just sit, just be in it and breathe. Synchronize your breathing. Just move through it, flow through it. Create a safe space for each other, because there's so much that we don't get to, and it's important to go beyond the surface layer. And so when you bring in the plant medicine, it allows you to kind of break those barriers and see each other face to face. And just remember to be intentional in that, and that it's a journey, it's a process, and every day is a new day, a new opportunity to look forward to in your relationship and your love for each other. And run each other a bath. That's real sexy.
Be super mindful with
Yeah.
it. It's all about the ritual, and focus not on the climax. That's always the end goal. Focus on the timelessness. That's what you experience during sex, is timelessness. Don't worry or create some sort of goal that it was a bust if you didn't get to. Do the meditations together, like she's saying.
And treat her to a CBD-infused breast massage.
We can help you with that. Come see us. Yeah.
I would say I'm just bringing in, because as an exercise physiologist here, like bringing in things and like being honest with what your body can and cannot handle. And I'm not talking about anything sexual. I mean, even just muscular, right? So like there are certain times or certain positions where it's like, man, today was leg day. Like this is just not going to work. Whereas there are lots of contraptions that you have. I call it the sex trampoline. That's not its official name. But things where you can put on and you can be on top and like, hey, it doesn't burn out my quads. I can still do it, you know? Like, I could go like this forever. And it's funny, and like, my husband's an ex-professional athlete, so he's like, I'm big and strong, whatever. Okay, great. You can't hold me forever like this. Like, I don't care how big and strong you are. There are devices that you can strap over him, put my legs in, and hey, it helps hold my weight. So, like, just be real. Like, you know, your body can only do so much. There's nothing wrong with getting a little help.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use props. And guys, stop looking at like a vibrator as your competition, okay? It's your teammate.
That's a good point.
All right? Like, there's so many, oh, well, my girl doesn't need that. Well, you know what? When you're at work, buzz, you don't know what's going on. So you guys need to work together as a team, and then everyone succeeds. Don't be afraid of props. Don't be afraid of toys. Don't be afraid to explore. Don't be ashamed. And don't shame. You know what I hear in the lube business all the time? Oh, my girl doesn't need lube. She's plenty wet. Well, you know what? Listen.
They haven't tried CBD lube.
They haven't tried that. And I have one that actually has a lot of different like aphrodisiac essential oils in it. I'm like, what if it could intensify her orgasm? Oh, she doesn't need that. I'm like, well, maybe she's faking, okay? Because there's a 45% chance that every single time she's faking, because that's what the statistics are, that they fake.
God.
Yeah,
And stay
it's pretty
hydrated.
sad.
That's horrible. If anybody wants any ideas for some of these contraptions, I highly recommend the Netflix series, How to Build a Sex Room. A lot of great practical, personalized applications of some of these ideas. I think we have time for one more question. Anyone from the audience? Yes.
Doesn't Lizzie have an experience tomorrow that addresses this?
Okay. Okay, sure. Well, tomorrow is the after party. That's Friday. Saturday, we're going to be doing the sex magic, self-love rituals, and psychedelic workshop in the Zen room.
Is that for solo
Saturday.
people too?
Yes. Is it what?
Is it for just for couples or
All of
by
us.
yourself?
We're
is
all
fine?
welcome. And if you got some sexy in your suitcase, slide into it, whatever the sexiest, most sensual, softest, romantic thing. I know we had a conference. And then hit me up about Sunday, because we'll be doing a very sensual late night jazz experience. You don't want to miss it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, this amazing panel. Let's give a round of applause for them.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Holy guacamole, that's going to be a tough act to follow, I'll tell you right now. If anyone can do it, it's Dr. Ben Sessa, though. So thank you all very much for a lovely panel. I sure learned a lot. Man, that blew my sex ed from middle school out of the water right there. We didn't hear shit about MDMA. All right. This is great. No, I wonder why they didn't invite me to be on the panel. God, maybe next year. All right, so we do have one more panel tonight, and Homeboy flew all the way out.